Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. Well, I'm delighted today to introduce you to you on the phone with a CEO and co-founder of an amazing company called Panintelligence. Her name's Zandra Moore. Zandra, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Zandra, well, let's get stuck in if that's all right. Why don't we share with our listeners? Tell us a little bit about the company and how it came together, please.
So Panintelligence, we're a Yorkshire-based data visualization developer. So we came about because we were part of a business called Credit that was producing software for the big banks and financial intermediaries. We were the little loved data analytics engine that was scorecarding and deciding who we do and don't lend to, essentially. We spun out as a separate business in 2014. There was only 6 of us, and we organically grew the company over 5 years up to 40 people. And we essentially go to market by selling our software to other software businesses who embed, white label, and enhance their own capabilities around dashboarding, reporting, and machine learning. So all of our customers are software businesses that call it something else. So often we're the best kept secret because we're always white labeled. We closed our Series A round at the end of 2019, raised 4.5 million growth capital, and we're currently expanding internationally into the US and other territories. So that's us.
Fantastic. And look, just to take us back to that time in 2014, I'm just curious to know how it came together. You obviously said it was part of the previous organization. What was that early time like, and how did that decision get made to spin it out separately?
Yeah, so I was running my own sales consultancy at the time, helping startup software businesses or new products in software companies launch to market. Yep. It was one of a number of clients I had. I'd been working with them on a consultancy basis for about 3 years, and there was an opportunity for that business to be acquired and by a company called Equinity, big share registrars in London, actually. And there was a number of offers on the table, not just Equinity's, but there was an option to buy or not buy it with Panintelligence. We were a loss-making product, quite new from a go-to-market point of view. So we didn't make the balance sheet look so great. And I think, therefore, we were in a position to spin it out, and we had the opportunity to do a management buyout. So my team, so the CTO, co-founder Ken, and myself, with the support of a couple of seed investors that were associated with the business, bought the IP and spun it out in 2014. So really, it was an opportunity for us to go it alone and take a chance really on a product that we really believed in, and was undervalued, I think, fair to say, at the time, really.
Now at that point, tell us a little bit about that period of when you were set free. Tell us a little bit about what happened at that period, and perhaps even share a little bit of insight into what that first external customer looked like.
Yeah, so we had 15 customers. We'd managed to sort of cut our teeth and created some new customers outside of the core business. So there was 6 of us. We literally carried a server across the car park and squatted in the room of one of our then the company we're exiting from, a spare room that they had in another building. It took us about 3 months to actually get a bank account properly set up because of all of the challenges with just creating a new independent business. So we had to kind of payroll ourselves out of our own money for a little while. It was, winning those first contracts was really tough as a small business with 6 people when you were part of a much bigger group. But fortunately, we had clients that were happy to be reference sites, and that really helps. I think we had some big brands that were already really behind our product. So companies like RM in education that deal with a lot of school technology access, who were a big provider of software to SMBs, and one of our first wins was a big software business called Tribal that had 85% of the university market. So it was not a bad start, but a few hard yards really.
And where would you say, if you were, maybe it's changed as the years have gone by, but which sectors have been really buoyant for you? Which are the ones that have seen real value from your products?
So because we were built for banking originally, and we don't move data, and all of our competitors move data around for the purposes of data analysis and reporting, that was that stood us apart in sectors that were really worried about the volume of data that were moving around, but also the security of that data from a compliance and regulation, or even just we don't want other companies outside the UK. So health, education, finance, payments were all the industries that we did very well in, mainly because data stayed where it was originated, as opposed to being moved around for the purposes of reporting. So yeah, for us, fintech was obvious because it's where we grew out of, but education in particular, we did very well in, payments. So yeah, I think we've got a broad enough customer community out there, but there is definitely areas that have lent themselves to our strengths in comparison to the big boys that we compete against, has to be said.
Now let's talk about those other customers, because they're, regardless of, there's plenty of companies out there selling some form of BI solutions. What's your typical customer look like? What problems are you generally solving for them?
Yeah, so our competitors are people like Power BI or Looker, Tableau, ClickView, some very, like you say, very big brands. They sell to enterprises predominantly, and they like to sell software businesses, but they are built essentially for corporates and enterprises. So consolidated business intelligence, classic corporate kind of BI challenges. We are built for selling to software businesses, and we're built for cloud. So we are built from the ground up to be hosted in a multi-tenanted environment in SaaS vendors' solutions, so that they can white label and embed us, and basically they can be the heroes. They can switch on incredible kind of self-service data visualizations, formatted reporting like crystal reports in a box, if you imagine, or machine learning predictive analytics, but embedded and white labeled as them. So their customers are like, hey, this is great, and they've not had to do the development work. So they get all the recognition for none of the hard yards, and a sensible fee to us in the process. The other thing is, because it's all we do, it's our software vendors that define our roadmap. So our product's always keeping ahead of what software vendors want, and we're the only tool that specialises in that vertical. So we understand what a SaaS vendor needs, and our product delivers that, and it delivers it without them having to write a line of code. So that's why we're different. That's
brilliant. And look, just if someone approached you, who would be approaching you? Put it another way, who would be approaching for you for this kind of thing? And just talk me through very quickly the journey from that first initial conversation to onboarding. What does that look like?
Yeah, so our personas is the great marketing word that everyone uses, right? So it's usually somebody that owns the product roadmap, or a founder. So a founder is interested in being competitive, making sure their product is leading the way, that they can go in and win against others in their vertical. So a founder's interested in that, and the founder is also interested in managing churn. A SaaS vendor's biggest problem is, let's keep the customers we've got. So if they've got some big, then they might be worrying about that kind of stuff, keeping those big meaty customers. A CEO or a product owner or somebody that owns the roadmap is probably worrying about what their customers are asking for that they're not able to deliver because they have a problem with resources. They have a problem with not enough development resource just to build their core product. So a lot of our focus is on enabling the product owners to have something that they don't have to build themselves. So it's out of the box, plug and play, and they don't need to use their precious development resources. And we're the experts in it, but also enabling the founders to have a really competitive product that keeps the customers that they've got, keeps their customers happy.
Now, I don't know what you're doing these days, if you're still, lugging servers across the car parks, but tell us what a typical day of the business looks like for you now.
So yeah, we're at a tipping point from a go-to-market point of view, because we're now internationalizing, whatever that really means. Interesting in COVID that the strategy we had pre-COVID is now different to where we are. We found that being able to expand our reach is not limited by our physical operation, which has been great to see, actually. But the tipping point for us is expanding our operation to serve global markets, so that we can follow the sun from a delivery point of view, from a go-to-market point of view, and make sure that our messaging and our audiences is and everything that we do is tailored to those different verticals and different markets. And that's a nice problem to have. So most of my day to day is working with our heads of delivery, heads of marketing and sales, to just be tuning into what we're hearing, getting that feedback from the market. Are we getting this right? Do we need to tweak and tailor that? Are we using the right channels? Are there some new channels that we should be exploring? Are we fishing in the right ponds in each vertical, in each market? Are we getting the messaging right? Is the price point suitable? So a lot of this is making sure we're not assuming anything and constantly iterating that to increase the volume of what we do. So we're still learning as we expand, and there are still things that we need to kind of test and validate, but that's an exciting place to be honest with you, because we're getting to try one of the most in technology at the moment. We're all having to fail fast very quickly and look for the ways to do what we can do as effectively as possible. So that's where we are, really.
Fantastic. Now, by the way, I want to touch quickly on another part, which is, well, first of all, it's great to have a female guest on the show. I don't have enough females coming on, and let's touch on some of that stuff. I know you've been doing some work within getting more females into leadership roles to technology. Can you just expand on a little bit of what you did there and what you've been doing there?
Yeah, so I, for my sins or not, I don't know what it is, I read the book by Sheryl Sandberg back in 2015, COO of Facebook, called Lean In. At the end of the book, it goes, go and find a local circle, because guess what? She'd created a social media platform to organise people. There wasn't a local circle. So I created one thinking, wouldn't it be great to meet other female leaders in the region and build a peer network? Fast forward 4 years and we have 800 members in a circle in Leeds, and that's quite bonkers, right? But for me, it was selfish to start with. I just wanted to find some people like me that I could have a good conversation with, find my own peer group. That's evolved as a complete passion to help technology, but across the board, and making sure that those conversations are happening all the time, and that we're talking to every part of the community. So we're talking to the organisations, the universities, the educators, as well as all those different people at various stages of their journey, so that they can think about how they can put their hand down to those and bring them up, or how they can community to be part of. And yeah, absolutely, it's put me at the heart of a lot of diversity conversations, it appears, over the last few years. Not something I really set out to do intentionally, but has been incredibly rewarding, candidly, really rewarding.
I'm sure it has. Zandra, tell us a little bit, if we take our steps, tell us back to sort of February, March time. Tell us what the business was looking like at that point. You know, we had a bit of a lockdown going on. We had some challenges, remote working. How did your company adapt to that? What was happening at that point, and how did you change your approach moving forward?
I think the tech sector is really fortunate, right, that we're so digitally enabled that moving to remote working, because everyone has a laptop and everyone's used to digitally communicating, was pretty straightforward for us. We're also, usually an industry that has a high level of skill around using technical tools. So getting them to pick up things like Teams and Zoom is just has not been difficult. So moving to remote working wasn't hard. We also have a flexible working culture. So lots of people that were working part-time anyway from home. It wasn't a huge change for us. I think the biggest change was around keeping the communication flows going and the innovation culture, because actually a lot of innovation happens by those kind of short 5-minute snatched conversations, or overhearing other conversations in the office, quite frankly. Yep. And we had to think quite intentionally about keeping that going and organising people into more regular conversations so that we didn't lose some of that dynamic. Can't say we always got it right, but yes, there's the social stuff like happy hours and coffee sessions via Teams, but I think it's the making sure that we're talking across the business around projects and ideas so that we don't lose that momentum that we already had in the business. We've had to work very, very intentionally on that. And I think we've succeeded in making it very clear in our all hands sessions every Friday, again, talking about everything end to end in the business. So we have complete visibility around what everybody's doing, what everyone's working on. That just helps spark people's conversations, and then they can take it offline. But yeah, I think we've found it probably easier than a lot of other businesses, I imagine.
Have you thought, has it changed your thinking in the future of how you bring people on, or how you set them up in their working week, or were you already there?
So we've hired 7 people during this period already, and onboarded 7 people that we've never even met. So we've been able to hire, on board, and some of those people don't live anywhere near Yorkshire. So we've hired somebody based on the south coast of the UK and somebody in Manchester, and yet pre-COVID, pretty much everybody we hired was within a 45 minutes of Leeds, candidly. So I think it's automatically changed our outlook on where talent can come from, which is an opportunity and a threat, actually, I think, in both veins.
So tell us a bit about your work ethic. I mean, is there perhaps a childhood story that's influenced your work ethic later in life?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to talking about my mum when anyone asks me this question. So I was very fortunate that my mum was my hero, and she had no O levels, eldest of 7 in a single parent family. She went into the working world after having children, applied to a job ad in the Yorkshire Post for a little known company called Planet Online, which was the first internet service provider in the north of England. She was employee number 3, and then grew her career in technology stratospherically over 10 years to being sort of head of international sales for Energis, being part of some real success stories in the region around technology. And it was just her attitude and her mindset and her glass half full, can do, likable, and honest way of just trying to simplify some of these complex propositions like the internet and the cloud before anyone really knew what they were. So when you grow up with that, it's hard not to be inspired. And I think the one sage piece of advice she gave me very early on in my career was, I made an awful lot of people rich, Zandra. Make sure you have a piece of the pie. So I think she made me want to be in tech and business. And she also gave me a hunger to be part of creating my own success and owning a part of the business, definitely.
What would you say is, just one piece of advice for anyone going through tremendous business change?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. Just don't assume anything. The thing that I've learned more than anything else during this period is to keep talking all the time with your team that are the coalface, because things are changing so fast. There are so many opportunities to innovate at the moment, and we have adopted more tools and technologies to help us reach our audiences in the last 3 months than in the 2 years prior, because we've had to be more innovative in our thinking, because it's not as easy to meet people and see people and speak to them, quite frankly. Yeah. And as a result, it's created a huge range of opportunities for us to think about the way we expand our business and the way we reach people, which is actually driving our strategy. And it's because I'm constantly speaking with those people that are sort of dealing with those kind of frontline problems, that we're able to innovate our strategy to adapt quickly. So, don't assume you've got something that's working, and keep testing that with your team all the time. Has been definitely the thing that's enabling us.
So what's really exciting you over the next couple of years? What in the industry in particular? What's the things that you're excited about looking at as the next couple of years go by?
So we're in a high growth segment. So SaaS vendors are only benefiting by COVID from the migration of people to cloud systems because of remote working and business continuity. So for us, our addressable market is accelerating and expanding and growing, and is well funded. So for me, it's how do I get to that market as fast as possible and be found, as a white label solution. We're not a brand that's as visible. So building that brand equity and building that brand profile is the key to us being able to scale up rapidly. So for me, the opportunity is huge. The challenge is building that brand as fast as I can, and growing the team around that. So yeah, as scaling a business into a market that is on an exciting journey. I don't know how else to put it, really. I just feel very fortunate that we're in the space that we're in.
That's good. That's great. And who are you keen to connect with? Who are you interested in building relationships with right now?
So, I look at companies like Monday.com, and I look at some of these big, rapid, high growth SaaS vendors that have just found a point solution and delivered that in a timely way to the market. They're the perfect customers for us. Those high growth SaaS vendors that are disrupting their markets, are bringing solutions to life quickly. So for me, those are the companies I'd love to talk to. But also, the investor community is often backing these businesses. They're often aware of those businesses that are in growth. So again, investors that are interested in SaaS and SaaS scale up and SaaS growth, they're always good introductions for me. And as we look to a potential Series B round in the not too distant future. So yeah, investors in the SaaS space and fast growing SaaS companies.
You mentioned earlier about that reduction of churn, and how critical it is. I just wonder how early in that strategy of that fast growing company that they're looking at that and looking at the analytics. Do you have conversations with customers about that and what they're doing currently?
Yeah, so we don't just deal with the larger SaaS, and you'll find a lot of ambitious SaaS companies are looking, do we try and do this ourselves, or do we embed it from the start? We absolutely work with those companies, and we look to give them a model which means they can do that at very low risk. So I think it doesn't have to be big brands as far as I'm concerned. We have a no-code solution that can be adopted by the smallest of SaaS teams, but if they want to bring some machine learning or data insights to their customers quickly to be able to outcompete the existing incumbents, then I think we'd be in a good position to help them. And like I said, there is no too small for us.
So look, as a final question, if you're giving your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, Zandra, what's the one thing that you'd say now?
That's a brilliant question. One piece of advice. I think self-belief is a tough thing to achieve. And imposter syndrome, you hear it a lot. It is definitely rife in both genders, quite frankly, but also in women. And I think for me, it would have been to understand and tackle that earlier in my career. I definitely am overcoming that. I think you'll always have it, but for me, it would be, what is your imposter syndrome? Understand it and overcome it. Because most of it is your own self-talk. It's not what others are telling you.
Absolutely. No, great advice there. Zandra, thanks so much for joining us. I know we had a few issues on the audio perhaps, but I think we got the messages loud and clear. What if anyone wants to connect with you, reach out to you? What's the best way that they can do that?
So LinkedIn is my favorite channel by a long way. I've got an unusual name, so it helps. So Zandra with a Z and Moore, Moore. If you just type that into LinkedIn, you'll find me. Please drop me a note on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect and have an initial chat with people. So please reach out via that channel.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed the podcast today. If you want to listen to more exclusive tips and life lessons from our guest, go to the resources page at vineresources.com.